In today's gospel, we have more information on the Sermon on the Mount, and I kind of take a little bit of a contrarian position about these particular thoughts in the Sermon on the Mount, because one of the things that we can do is that we can take them absolutely woodenly literally. And so if we take them woodenly and literally, what happens is that we have the talent that the Lord has given us, and we say, "Okay, Lord, aren't I wonderful because I've given you back the talent without having any defilement, any dirt, anything? It's pure, it's wonderful. Here's your talent back with you." But instead, what we can think about is we can think about the right and wrong use of the different things that are covered here in the Sermon on the Mount. So one of the things about is talking about anger. And anger is a human emotion. Anger is not a sin, it's a human emotion. Just like love, it's a human emotion. But we can either use anger to take revenge, to injure another person, to seek vengeance, or we can use anger to rightly think about something that gets us upset and we want to do something about it. For example, if we find something that's unjust in our society, using anger to help us to spur us on to action, not just to advocacy, but to action, to go and to do something to change the law, to change the situation. So anger can be very helpful. It's not that everything that we can't be angry at all times. We got to have a bright, sunny, smiley face at all times. No, there are times when we need to have anger. The other one is adultery. One of the problems with that is that, again, love is a human emotion, and attraction is not necessarily a bad thing. Attraction is a bad thing if it's towards somebody who's already married, or attraction for somebody or someone on the internet, or some place that we shouldn't be going to. That's a bad thing. But attraction is a good thing. It helps us to think about whether or not that is the person who we want to spend the rest of our life with, if we're attracted to them, not only in a physical sense, but also emotionally, and having the same interests. We really think about, do we want to have that person there with us for the rest of our life? If we didn't have human attraction, then we wouldn't have marriage, we wouldn't have children, we wouldn't have procreation, we would have nothing. Because again, you need to have that attraction. The other one he talks about is divorce. Now, one of the problems with divorce is that you can certainly say in our society that we have way too many much divorce, and that's true. But one of the things in working with couples is that sometimes you find out that it's not just 50-50 that both are at fault, but sometimes it's 95 to 5 as to who's at fault, or sometimes there's really material things that are held back from the person in order to marry the person. But if the person had known about that person, had known more intimately about that person, they would have married that person. So you have situations like that. You also have situations of abuse where, maybe it starts out where the person kind of, it's not as big, but then all of a sudden it gets bigger over time. And so what should have been that red flag kind of missed sometimes. And so one of the things about that is, again, that idea of divorce, needing to have that divorce. Or there can be a situation where a person is under pressure in a particular situation to get married. And although they might not say that to the priest or to the minister who's doing the wedding, that there is that pressure for sometimes by person or circumstance to get married. So again, there are times where divorce is needed. Even though we see that God hates divorce, again, sometimes with human nature, the situation does call for that divorce. The other thing about it is oaths. And one of the things about oaths is that you see St. Paul in the Acts of the Apostles, who gets his head shaved because he's taken an oath. So is St. Paul sinning? One of the things about oath, though, is that a lot of times we take oaths over things that we have absolutely no control over. So, so what happens is that we have a situation where we say in Lent, okay, I'm going to give up this particular sin or vice in my life. I'm going to do that. But we find out that we don't necessarily have control over it. So when we fail, instead of getting, instead of saying, do I have control over it, we get angry at God or angry at the situation or, get all upset. And really what oaths are for is really thinking about what do I have control over and what can I do? Not just in advocacy, but also in action. So let's say I'm going up for a promotion. I say, okay, Lord, if you want to give me that promotion, that'd be great. I will give $500 to the church or to a cause or to a family member or friend or relative who's not doing well. So I'm going to give that money to them and bless them because you've blessed me by giving me this promotion. Does the person have control over that? Yes, because if they get the promotion, then they can give the 500. If they don't get the promotion, then they're not going to give the 500. So again, it's all in that idea of oaths. But many times what we do is we take kind of false oath, thinking that somehow we have control, and we really don't. So one of the things about the Sermon on the Mount is keeping in mind that God could have made us robots. He could have made us emotionless and everything like that. But he chose not to. So we have human emotions, and using those emotions and using those gifts and talents for good and not for evil. Thanks. God bless.